Everyone, welcome back. BetSperts Golf 2023. Arnold Palmer, Bay Hill. Andy, how we doing?
Good. I almost went to the Quick Trip around the corner to get an Arnie. Those are good.
So
That
good.
just the mixed up one. I like making my own though because I'm a big confession right off the bat. I'm a big sun tea guy. I
Okay.
make my own iced tea in the summer, and oftentimes I will mix it with a little lemonade. But yeah, after the I don't want to say unpleasantness because Ron hit an outright, and it was a fun week. And overall, my daily matchup stuff did pretty good. Ron hit an outright. I actually enjoyed watching parts of the tournament, but it did suck that it was just this built-in bye week where nobody showed up. And also, not just congrats to Ron, but congrats to Chris Kirk for like making that call. I mean, people have kind of posited that question on the timeline already today. Is there a case to go play Puerto Rico if you're like, the 100th ranked player in the world, but you made this field? Because the cut line is tough here. The field is tough, and Puerto Rico gets you into a lot of things. If you were to win it, or even just top five there, you could make a lot more cash. And I mean, it's a viable question, but yeah, Chris Kirk opting to play last week and taking it down, $1,000,000+ in his pocket. Good for him.
Good for him. Yeah. And obviously, we had two good stories too last weekend, too. The Eric Cole story of you guys just kind of grinding mini tours for years and gets himself in contention and has been playing pretty good golf. And then, obviously, Chris Kirk has battled demons off the course. I mean, he came in, won a couple of times, made a President's Cup, and then just, kind of lost himself. He talked about, if you listen to, he had a really good, probably like 3 years ago now, No Laying Up episode appearance where he talked about like, look, you miss a cut, you're stuck in a hotel room by yourself. It sucks. You can't cover your expenses. You're away from your family. He turned to the bottle. Good for him for getting himself back together, getting his game back together and finding the winner's circle for sure and making a pretty smart decision. I think it is interesting, especially comparatively, because we do have these monster tournaments. And yeah, there's more prize pool to be, pieced out to these guys. But like, gosh, it's loaded, man. And this one's even more loaded than all the others. We have basically anyone that is like 44, the top 50 in the world are here this week.
The entire top 30. And again, the OWR is kind of messy, but it's still it's close enough where it's like, Jesus, this is a field.
Yeah, it's a loaded spot. So good for Kirk. Did you tune into any of the live golf this weekend?
A little bit. I was a little disappointed in my 4 aces. I mean, it was the Crushers week. I added to my 4 aces position. I found a plus 700. And it was just a little to win the team event, you essentially need like 2 guys in the top 5. And that is what the Crushers did. We won't do a big live recap because nobody gives a shit. It was on the CW, no one cared. But I did make a few bets. I enjoy at least looking at it. And yeah, and Matt, to point out, I think this is in Ron's article. This is the strongest field since the Open. I mean, this is even trumping the last couple events where we had elevated fields. Like, this is a major level field at this point. So it's wild. And again, I think I pointed this out. I don't know if I said this on here. I maybe said it on Brown Bag Bets. Said, if you are enjoying this, you need to go shake Greg Norman's hand. Like, Liv forced this.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if Liv does well or not. They forced this elevated event thing, and they're giving us essentially like 10 majors a year to add to the 4 majors a year, plus the playoffs. Like, golf is, and again, I know that the byproduct of that is you're going to get fields like you had at the Honda. You're going to get fields like you always will get at the John Deere. But I mean, it's the same as anything. For every Chiefs Bills, Chiefs Bengals game, you're gonna have a Thursday night Jaguars Titans. I mean,
you kind of need it too, right?
That's how it goes. And I, again, like we said, we had fun watching the Honda. It's cool to see like the leaderboards where it's just like a bunch of those guys where it's like, all right, come on, like someone's getting a W. And the thing for those guys too, like Chris Kirk's in the Masters now. Like, it's a really big deal. It doesn't matter how bad the field is. If you get that W, it affords you a lot of great career opportunities, and I enjoy watching it for that as well.
Yeah. And to your point, like, we do need the Titans Jaguars. We need to have the exhale a little bit, because it does make the elevated events elevated. If they are all elevated, then we just don't get the great feel that we have for these bonus majors, basically the mini majors, as Matt referenced. So also shout out, thanks Sam. If you're watching, make sure you hit that thumbs up. It helps the YouTube page. If you are listening in podcast form, we appreciate that as well. Check us out live every Tuesday morning, 11 Eastern, on the YouTube channel page on BetSperts as well. Again, wherever you are, thumbs up, rate, review, all those things help us keep the lights on and keep this stuff for free. And we can talk outright betting with you. I do not know Andy's card at this point, which is always fun. I have a handful of bets, and because it is different and it is like the majors, I think we have to approach it a little bit different. So before we get into it, what are you kind of prioritizing in terms of statistics this week? We know this is a really long 7,400 yards, right? It's like it's 7,400, but because there's a ton of water and forced layups here, it does play even longer. We have a large swath of shots from longer outs. When I look at it, we had last year just 29% of approach shots were from 150 yards or closer, which is like half of a normal event. You also have significantly more over 200-yard approaches too. Like last year, from 200 to 225, you had 14% of the approach shots were in that range. It's typically like 9 and change. You had a bunch from also 225 to 250, 250 plus. So again, a lot of long irons here. But what are you kind of weighing more than other stats here?
Yeah, and I mean, maybe even taking a step back and talking about what that means with it plays longer than it is. Like, because if every fairway was straight, flat, and had nothing in it, everyone, I guess every week would be Bombers Week, and nothing else would matter. But the ways to affect that is forced layups, like you see a lot of that here, where if you pull out the driver here, you're going to end up in the water, or there's a decent chance you're going to end up in the water or out of bounds or somewhere, equally bad, like some of these fairway bunkers, or you are going to have to take a forced layup. You're going to have to club down and just hit it less than what you normally would. But I think that's the most common. But here, there's just a lot of really tall rough. And I mean, if it bounces in the rough here, it ain't rolling any further. And some of these fairways are tougher to hit. You're going to end up with a lot of shots that end up short because of that. Because of the actual force layup, because of the design of the course. So it's going to play a lot longer. And, the driving distance will matter when it comes into play. But I think the main thing here is just long irons and being able to play in this wind, because,
yeah,
I mean, just if you made me look at this course 6 months ago and not know anything about the conditions, I'd probably still say they're likely going to have some wind, because we always have wind. But like Friday looks like a real motherfucker. Like it looks bad. And I know we've had this was it Sawgrass last year?
Yeah.
We had the day where it was just like, if you were playing with your buddies, you'd probably take a rain check. Like, I'm not playing in this. Let's go to the bar. This sucks. And it's funny because we still had a couple guys go out and shoot some nice rounds. We're able to cut through it and play around it. But it looks like we're going to deal with that Friday. And it sucks because, and I don't want to like dog on Ron, because this is not a dog on Ron, but he mentions it several times in his preview. The greens are hard to hold. And anyone who golfs knows, like, how do you counteract a green that's really hard to hold the ball? You hit the ball higher, you use more loft, you hit it a little harder, you come in at a higher angle, and end up where at a landing angle where it doesn't roll as much, where it's not going to bounce off the green. That's going to be awful hard to do when there's 30-mile-an-hour gusts. Like it really affects every part of the game as you're playing your from tee to green here, which is a huge pain in the ass. And so Friday's going to be a mess. And you gotta look at some. I mean, beyond the stats, I guess, some guys that can play technically sound golf. And I believe there were some quotes from Rory, maybe, talking about how Tiger was able to win this. And he just basically said, like, hey, Tiger didn't take any chances on the holes where the chances will hurt you. He was able to just play conservative golf, play, mistake-free golf on all the easy or all the tougher holes. And then when he got to the par fives, he hit the piss out of the ball, got there in 2 and scored a bunch. And if you're able to birdie these, it might be as simple as that. Honestly, it might be as simple as like the guys who are going to score on the fives are going to be near the top of the leaderboard. I know there's a lot of other things that'll tie into this and obviously become important. I just like, it's so silly to say like stay out of the water. Like that's just a skill someone has. But I mean, the people who play smart golf and are able to score on the fives, I guess is kind of what I'm looking at.
And the fairways can run fast too. So not just holding the greens. You're going to watch, if you're watching, you will see one of your golfers hit a piper down the fairway, and that stuff is going to roll into the water at some point. It happens every year here. Even good shots are sometimes challenged. So it is going to be tough. Yeah, the Rory quote I think is very interesting. You got to take it. Distance is always an advantage. It's not always necessarily an advantage off the tee because you are going to be forced into layups, but you are going to be able to hit it higher, to Andy's point, with the longer, shorter irons than, someone's hitting a 4-iron. You have an advantage if you're hitting a 6 or a 7 in to hold it. So, loaded fields. Obviously, Rahm and Scotty have done their business already this year. Rory did. He won on the DP World Tour, obviously, holding off Patty Reed. Hasn't won on the PGA Tour yet, but it is a very clear top 3, especially when you look at the odds board. They're basically, for the most part, those 3 are separated. They're pretty much the only ones, south of 20 for the most part. Discrepancy on some books here and there, but they're the top of the board, and it's hard. Like, I know we typically like to live in the 30 to 60 range. We'll take some bombs comfortably. It just is getting harder and harder to do that. You have to kind of reshape the card. So, like, I'm stealing from Peter to pay Paul on other spots of the card to allocate some more funds at the top of the outright betting board, because I feel like you can't really mess around that much with the 60s here. Because we talked about it. Like, you don't just need, it's not like Mexico. You had like, all right, it's Rahm and Finau. So I'm going to take some shots down the board. Like, you need all these guys to stumble. So when you start looking at, the Gary Woodlands and Corey Connors and Keegan Bradleys of the world, like, it's just a lot harder sledding in a field like this.
Yeah, and I did see people taking some Keegan prices, and I can't like fault them, but boy, it is just like it's like betting into a major. Like we get this. It's silly that we make the comparison like, hey, it's like a major level field. I think you almost have to treat it like a major. Maybe the motivation is a little less like for some of the guys, but it's not like they're coming in here and be like, this isn't Augusta, so I'm going to try like 10% less. It's a $20 million pot. There's more money here than at Augusta. 25 next week. There's so much money here, and I mean, these guys are just uber competitive to begin with. It's not like the fact that it isn't a major is taking away a big chunk of their motivation here. So, like, to beat, I mean, just go to any odds board and start reading. Just read the top 10 names, and then ask yourself, do I really believe like Keegan Bradley is going to have a good enough day 4 times in a row to beat every last one of these names? Like, it's super hard to get past like 40 here. And I know like Keegan, Sam Burns, there's some names, Corey Connors. I'm not exactly sure where his price is right now, but there's some names that are awful tempting. But my life might be spent in just really spending a lot more time on matchups this week. Might be just like a 3 or 4 outright kind of card, because I'm not that excited about backing, just essentially like throwing money away and like, hey, I'm gonna Taylor Montgomery 120 to 1. Like, yeah, but like, am I really excited about just pissing away a quarter unit like that?
No,
probably not.
No, you're probably not. So, yeah, it is a different world and tricky to kind of navigate. So, all right, we'll dig into it here. Again, par 3s are long here. Some of the other stuff that I'm looking at too before we get into it. The key proximity ranges I talked about at the top. Like, you just don't have a lot of the short irons, a lot of the wedge stuff. Wind is inevitable. We are going to have wind on Friday. It looks like everyone's going to have to deal with the wind, so it's going to be. Maybe we'll have a better insight if there's going to be a split advantage, in terms of AM PM there. But those things are going to play themselves out. We've seen that. So I think the 2020 edition had massive win. We had really low scores. We had low scores last year. Very often the last handful of years where you stay in the single digits. You cut lines usually around +3, +4, similar to last week, but with a better field. Like your guy's just not out of it if he goes out and shoots a 75 on Thursday. So you're not going to feel good, but he's still alive, even though he'll be 7-8 shots back. So those things you need to kind of wait for. Bogey avoidance, again, just staying out of the water for the most part. We mentioned fast fairways and fast greens. So I think looking at guys that have some experience putting on fast Bermuda is a key here too. And because you're going to not hold the greens, around the green does matter a little bit here. So those are some of the things that I'm weighing. And touch real quick about Boostgate. I don't know, a little bit if you've seen this in our Discord. FanDuel has offered some very generous boosts, unusual in the space. I think you had to trigger it to bet, I think a $25 outright, and then it triggered the ability to get a boost. I had shot all my shots early in the morning, but I am our old friend Jeff Feinberg. I'm Feinberg's FanDuel book. So like he'll hit me up to fire something. So I fired at a bet for Feinberg, and as soon as I did, I got a notification for an opt-in. I'm like, what is this? And turns out not everyone has it. So if you happen to have FanDuel, they didn't see it early Monday morning, take a shot, go and throw. Again, like I wish that there was a way for me to tip you off and be like, you're going to get it and you're not going to get it. I don't know. Some of our subscribers did not get the boosts available, but a 50% profit boost with a $100 max bet is a pretty nice little outright bump. So again, FanDuel specific, check it out if you happen to have it. If you don't, I'm sorry that I teased you and let you know that some people get this boost. But I'll start there because I took the advantage of that boost and I played Rory. I was able to bump him up to 14 and change. Again, he's basically 9 across the board in the marketplace. There are some 950s out there. Chris is at 785. Just again, like these invitationals too, like these are the ones that are locked in for designated events moving forward. These guys want this one, like, Arnie, like all these things, like the Jack at Memorial, Tiger at Genesis, like these ones are going to always be the designated events. So to your point, like, I don't think anyone is slipping in their focus, but like, I think these are the ones that the guys want even a little bit more than say, whatever, like the TOC was elevated or waste management. Like I think these ones matter. And I think this one's really important to Rory. He's shown well, won it in 18, and I want him to get in the mix and really make this a nice 3-man race here heading into Augusta. So 14 and change on Rory was where I started. It did not post that as official play for our subscribers just because I'm not playing it at 900. So are you thinking about one of the top 3?
Yeah, and so again, the boost happens after you make a bet. Is that what you're telling me?
So you make a $25 bet, then they give you the ability to opt in, and you get the boosts in your boost folder or whatever. So I took some early shots. Like I fired it at Xander at 24 on FanDuel. Then I got the boost. I had a full cash out option, cashed out at 24, and bet him at 36 for the same stake.
Because a big one you usually see, and we've talked about it in the Discord for anyone in there, but like a big one you usually see is like add 300 to it. It's like
DraftKings does that all the time.
Yeah, DraftKings does that one a lot. And honestly, if you're going to use it, take one of the top 3 favorites, like because it's just such a bigger percentage for those guys compared to making a 50 into a 53 is just such a small boost. Like always take an 8, make it into 11. So it's kind of I don't have a ton of bonuses, although I will, and I'm gonna jump around here because I don't give a shit. Bookmaker off into bonus, and it's gone now, but I still think they had Justin Thomas at 32-1 this morning, which I think I would have been comfortable betting him down at like 25-28, which he is now 27.50. A bunch of people hit that. That was my first play. I don't know. I haven't run everything yet. I've run through Ron stuff. I've looked at what I think's important. I've looked at what other people think's important here, and kind of made some strides towards where I'm at in this. But like he's he's a top 5 golfer and kind of overall form. Overall, if you just want to really dumb it down, look at shots or strokes gained total. Like he's going to be pretty high up there, and for a little guy, he hits the ball pretty well too. It's weird how tiny he is. Like if I were, he's a top 25 driving distance guy, which is stupid because he's like 114 pounds. Like he is
For sure.
he is like the beginning of Captain America, like the where they CGI him to make him really small. Like JT's so little, and it's crazy. So I hit that. I will just say right off the top, I can't without some sort of boost. Rom, Rory, Scotty are probably off the board for me. I don't know if that's like probably bad strategy just to wipe off the 3 best golfers in the world, but I think a lot of it is comes down to like value. Is there value in the number? Do you think there's value in the number? And
Yeah.
the same conversation I had about Keegan, like, hey, can he beat all these guys? Well, all 3 of these guys have to beat the other 2. And you can say that with anyone I'm betting as well. Like, well, all those guys have to beat all 3 of the big dogs. That's fair, but I'm not betting into an 8-1 on those. And that having to beat one extra guy at 25, 30, 35-1 rather than taking one of these top dogs at 8-1. I don't know. It settles better with my brain. So I avoided everyone off the top. I'm probably going to be the case for most of it. And I am down a little lower, and it's surprising. I guess my question to you is: are you surprised where Zalatoris came in this week? With, I mean, I think we're fine with the injury now. I don't know where you sit on it and what your thought process is. It sounds like it's better, but he's essentially 4th favorite.
I mean, I don't think that we have. We saw enough at Genesis. I think we had some concerns, and tried to get some inside the ropes information and see on if were there real concerns there. And I think he kind of like squashed them with this play at the Genesis. So there were 30s real quick. I missed the 30. Ron got a 30. I got a 25 on Zal. That's gone. Basically, you look everywhere, it's 18s and 20s for the most part now. Homa actually opened up as the 4th in the market too, which I think is interesting to see. Like, gosh, the 35s and 60s last year on Homa, those days are gone, and they're deservedly so. He's been terrific. So again, you made the case we're moving out of California and where Max has done really well, but got a nice 46 on him next week at the Players, which I'm excited about. So Zal, like, look, what's the thing we talk about with Zal all the time? Tough courses, tough scoring conditions, loaded fields. And the surprising thing with Zal is, again, we'll see it. They will at some point zoom in to this poor SOB and inside 5 feet. It is brutal. It is inside out. It wiggles. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how it happens.
You'll see the putter head do this as it hits the ball.
Dude, he is 12th in the field in strokes gained putting over the last 6 months. He is really good outside of that little distance where he just can't get it's like the, Rick Ankiel, Chuck Knobloch. He's got the yips a little bit, but you get him from a distance and he's been really good. So again, approach game, we're talking about long irons. He's going to check all the boxes. So yeah, Zalatoris at 25 was a play. I can understand why someone would be hesitant at 18 because you're creeping up to that next tier of guys. But, again, getting into the Discord early Monday morning and getting the push notifications when those lines drop, they're dropping a little bit earlier every week too on Monday morning. So yeah, I have no problem with Zal. I have no problem with Max either. I just, again, like if I'm getting Zal a little bit longer, I'm getting some of these other guys a little bit longer, it's hard to pull the trigger on Max, who I love. I'll take a finishing position bet on Max and feel like I still got a little bit of skin in the game on him.
And that's the thing too. You do have to think about this. Let's say, like I said, JT, I got a 32, and let's say I think it should be 22. If you have 4 or 5 guys in that range that you think the number is wrong and it should be shorter, then other golfers have to move up. Like, although you do see books, I've seen that in MVP markets where somebody gets bet, they move them down and nobody moves up because they're assholes about it. But, the way you should be looking at it is not only, you can't just say like 3 of these guys are priced too short. You're creating a weird market with a super high hold in an already high hold market. Like, you have to start looking at some of those guys, like who is overpriced in this market as well. And honestly, and I hate to say it, but Homa is probably there. He's very good. He's one of the best golfers in the world, but we're not in California, and the rest of the field is just so good. And where his price was to start the week was probably a little too heavy. And I'm fine with that. It's not. I'm not anti-Homa. I'm not saying he's gotten worse over the last 2 weeks or it's a bad fit for him. It's just he's probably a little lower than he probably should have been a little lower than he was.
Yeah, I think that's fair too.
Odds, actually. Yeah.
I think your JT number is great. We talk about two of the rounds that maybe stick out to me all last year. JT at the Players, he was the like terrible wind rounds, and the fact that he didn't bogey was incredible. And then he also got in at Southern Hills, where he eventually won the PGA Championship. He also had a terrible weather round. So the 30s on JT was probably the best bad weather player in the world. That's a great number. So love that. That was a good play. Not available anymore. Basically, 20-25s for the most part on JT.
Yeah. Still at 27 on Bookmaker if you're a
nice
offshore / Canadian person / you live in Costa Rica, I guess. But that's playable. The rest of them, just kind of talking through the rest of the guys. Like I said, Homa is probably out to where he should be. Colin, I wish I had a little more faith. Friend in the golf chat, Dwayne D makes D money, whatever you guys know him as. He does a lot of college basketball. He has me absolutely terrified of Morikawa in the wind. Now I haven't bet it yet. I might be out on it, but I mean, he's right. Morikawa's ball speed is below average. The average tour ball speed, and I'll just talk generally about like off the tee driving the ball. It's gone up like 5 miles per hour over the last few years. It's gone up quite a bit. Like club speed, ball speed has gone up with increases in technology and people understanding, how to increase their club speed. And he's not like horrible. I'm not saying like, hey, Colin Morikawa is a bad golfer, but he is slightly below average, and ball speed matters a lot when the winds are kicked up. And he's 167, kind of 167, 168, whereas like somebody like Cam Young hits at $184, tour average being around 171. So if you have a guy who's ball speed is a little light like that, it's kind of one of those little nudges that says, if you're waffling on this guy, he might struggle in the wind, because not only, if you're facing one of these prevailing headwinds and you can't get your ball speed up, it might not blow it off course, but you're going to end up with a much shorter, tee shot, which is going to lead to a longer approach shot, which, as we know here, is going to cause all kinds of problems, because you can't just hit the piss out of it and try to get it high and try to catch that green. You're probably going to be hitting out of the rough. Although, and again, this is previewed well in Ron's article, they did get rid of some runoff areas and just turn it into rough, which kind of peeved Rory, apparently, according to those quotes. But so, you are able to catch your ball. It's not going to roll as far as it used to in years past, but you're still chipping out of the rough, which sucks. So it's tough. It's tough with Morikawa. I did end up avoiding him at that price. Cantley, I'm avoiding at that price. He's like 20. Xander, I thought about. You got a good number. I did not. I stayed away. So like in the next range, I want you to talk me out of Victor Hovland, I guess.
Can't. Took a 37 on Vic on Monday morning. Can't do it. I bet him last year here. We had a sweat on the weekends. I mean, ball striking. This is why we wanted to see him at Torrey. And I think that there are some leaderboard comparisons year to year, and not necessarily a great corollary course in terms of design, but in terms of like kind of where you need, where a lot of like the shots fall from. I think that there are some similarities to Torrey, and which is I think why Max is a play for me. It's why I like Xander here. So yeah, I cannot talk you out of Vic. What's the best number you see?
32.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like anything over 30 I'd look at here. And again, like you said, people want to dog on him for chipping. There's not a lot of chipping. It's just little duffs out of the rough if you end up missing these greens. It's not big up and downs from well below the hole in this runoff area. So probably helps him a little. And yeah, Matt Fitzpatrick grades out high for me here. He's actually had really good course history, but I can't quite get around the injury, and his price is a little low. What did you think of Sungjae last week? Was it just I don't care about Honda at this point, and he just kind of made the cut and coasted? It didn't look like he was all that focused.
Golf's hard, even though you're the belle of the ball. It turns out
Yeah.
like winning golf is hard. I like Sanjay. He's fine. I'm never betting him in this field at 30, 33. I can't do it. I know like we want him in the Southeast. He likes the Bermuda. He's performed better in Florida, typically in the Southeast. But this is just too short for me on Sanjay when you can skip down to a whole other tier and get, I think, guys that are as good or better than Sanjay at that number. So yeah, that's a little rich. How about Jason Day? Like fully back Jason Day, right? At least in terms of the market, because we have Jason Day anywhere between 25 and 35, I guess. He's been playing really good golf. I would like him at 40 or 45, but 25 is kind of incredible to me. But we're back to Jason Day.
Yeah, just kind of comp courses. He ranked out really well for me, top 10.
Yeah.
I mean, of anything, if you want to dog on him, his approach game isn't as good as some of the guys here, but it's still good. His driving distance is above average, but not great. And again, you're gonna have a lot of forced layups where you're not forced to have a long driving distance. It's gonna help you in some spots here, especially the par fives. But that's another spot. His par five scoring is good. His off the tee numbers, just in general, are very good. He's somebody I eyeballed pretty hard, and you might have just talked me into it because I'm not sure what the best number on him is, but it's kind of like I said, my whole range might just be in 30s, and there's a 30, there's a 34, so fine, yeah, Jason Day.
Yeah, 34, Chris, looks like the best that I see for you. Domestic, there's a 33 on MGM on Jason Day. Yeah, and he's playing good golf. And you mentioned the comp courses is makes a lot of sense here. And I don't know what he's done here. And again, he probably hasn't played here in a while either. I'm not even sure what his course history is. If that. So he won in 16.
He just hasn't played it much in the last 5 years.
Yeah, withdrew in 2020, which checks out. Did not play last year, 31st in 2021. But again, he's won here before and plays well at comp courses. So I mean, like before we like dip down, just want to circle back real quick because there are still, I think, bettable numbers on Xander. 25 at Chris, 24 domestically at FanDuel without the boost. We don't think of him. I don't think he typically gets like classified as one of the best long iron players in the world, but like
he is. Like his approach numbers are so good right now. The only knock I had on him was running numbers on comp courses.
Yeah.
And some of that can be noisy, but it's so low compared to the rest of the field. It scared me a little. Debate that, I guess.
Yeah. And that's right. We just like the Colin thing. We have to find reasons not to. It's very, it's very easy to be like, oh, I like that guy this week. These are the best golfers in the world. But like over the last 12 months, Xander is by far the best on tour. Strokes gained on approaches over 200 yards, comfortably ahead of Morikawa, Zalatoris. He's also among the leaders. He's by far the best out of this like top tier in terms of strokes gained approach on rough approaches, 150 yards and more, which we know we're going to have a bunch this week. Relevant with low fairway hit rates here. He's just been really good. Top 10 in bogey avoidance. He's one of the best in par 5 scoring, which we mentioned. Like he was going to be an easy click for me. He's only played once here, 24th a couple years ago. That was the really bad 2020 wind one where Hatton won at like 4 under. So I don't really care too much about what he's done here. So yeah, I just think it's a bad number for. He's like, I don't know, 18 to win next week or at like the Masters or something like that. He does not play well at he's like miscut the last like 3 or 4 years at Sawgrass. So not a great number for him next week. He's going to look long on the board, but there's some pretty bad history there that's got to be in his mind. But I think this week is a pretty good spot for him. So he was an easy click for me.
What'd you get him at?
24, but I took the 36 boost. 36 is nuts. But yeah, the 24 is still out there.
To get him at essentially where you're getting like I mean, there's Keith Mitchell's out there at like 40. So
Right.
to get Xander at 36, yeah, that was a really nice boost of you.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings us into the rest of that range. I mentioned Keith being down there, but Hatton, really nice. What was that, 2 weeks ago? I'm still not sure what to do with him. I've
Football show.
that
Oh, we're a football show. My the green screen fell.
Oh, I missed that. Oh, fuck it. I like that. And yeah, oh, look at this. Nick Palfrey must be a Euro. 34 on Betfair.
Great number.
Lucky
Yeah.
with the exchanges. I like that quite a bit. Yeah, Hatton, I'm not sure quite what to do with. I think my numbers always hate the Euro guys who just don't use. I don't know if I'm using the some of those numbers quite right or making comparison, or I'm using an old conversion. Maybe I should be giving DP numbers more of a boost than I have been in the past. So I think that's probably a little bit of a leak in mine. But his comp course stuff is good. He's just kind of there. Like I think he's priced accordingly. Like he should be there. He doesn't do anything that I'm looking at spectacularly, but there's no like glaring weaknesses. Like Hatton might be a nice top 20 price. He's probably a nice positional guy. He just really does fit here, but he doesn't do anything spectacular. I don't know if he has enough. I almost said moxie. This is 1958. Apparently, he doesn't have enough chutzpah. Oh, I like that one too. Just
Chutzpah's good.
Chutzpah to overcome the top of the field here. Seeing a lot of love for Tommy Fleetwood and maybe even Gary Woodland. I don't know if you had opinions on either of those guys.
Look, Gary's ball striking has been like really, really, really good. Played well here last year. Really kind of choked down the stretch, if anyone remembers. Got himself, I think, in the sand on 17. Couldn't get himself out. Really let Scotty come back and take that one. Again, like I wanted to bet Gary and I wanted to bet Mitchell last week at the Honda. We just didn't get them. They didn't show up. They both play better on Bermuda. We'd like Gary historically on less than driver courses, long irons. And again, the ball striking has been great. So that number is long. That was the Feinberg bet. Jeff reached out to me. That triggered my bonuses. So let you know, Feinberg is on the Woodland play at 90. He's like a top 40 play for me. But like we're basically at the point for me. I don't know that there's winners at this point. Like these guys are all really good, right? Like Shane Lowry's really good at golf. You know, Chris Kirk just won. Hideki is kind of the interesting one that I want to get your thoughts on. There are 66s out there on Hideki.
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Like it's a big number and it sounds like a big number, and it's not that long ago that this guy won a Masters. But I think it's probably priced pretty accordingly. I don't have like greens in regulation, par 5 scoring, driving out of the rough, good drives gained, driving distance. Everything is just so low for Hideki for me. Like he's a middle of the pack guy here right now, which stinks because he's been he was a top 5 golfer at a certain point in his career, and it's just that's not it right now. So it's a big number on a big name, but like if you made me bet somebody, I guess I'd rather bet Patrick Rogers. Oof.
Clip that.
Just said that out loud. And maybe and I think you're right. I kind of want to just stop looking at the outright board now and say, that's it. Like I'm not going any lower. It might just be those 3. And maybe we don't talk enough about this. We just kind of say it in a passing, I'm not betting this guy, but he might be a positional bet for me. So like, what are you doing when you're looking for that? What differentiates when you say like, hey, this guy's a top 40, this guy's a top 20, this guy's a top 10, this guy's a top 5? I never get into this, and I want to do it this week. Yeah, this is a good week for it. But like, talk about your process a little on, hey, this guy, and I know sometimes you'll do it with an outright. Sometimes you'll do it with someone who isn't, obviously on the outright card. Sometimes it's some bigger names, and you're just kind of big, not big game hunting, but it's like this is an obscene big number on a guy to top 40 here who maybe just isn't getting the respect he deserves because he's young, because he's European, because he's newish, he's a 40-year-old rookie, what have you.
So I try to hedge a little bit with the top, especially the top of the board outrights, where I want to be, whether that's, you know, there's a bet into an each. Those are great if you have them. I want to have a little bit of like, I want to get rewarded a little bit for the to win.
Of course your signal goes to shit right when
Cool.
I set you up for this
Second.
big monologue. Yeah. I will take this time to point out Matt Ryan has a really good point. Great call on Percy top 40 last week, Andy. I was a little pissed. At first, I'm like, God, I should have bet this guy top 5. Came out flying on Thursday, but I mean, go ahead, get back into it. I didn't hear any of it.
You just give me a wave if I'm stupid internet. I want to get a little rewarded for top of the board, top finishing positions, even if they don't do well. So I typically don't mess a lot with top 5s or top 10s. I would do so in a situation like this where I wanted to get some Rom or Scotty and get a plus number. I still think they're going to perform really well, but for the most part, I skip that. Other than like major weeks, I'll take shots on Zalatoris, Xander, Hovland, these guys that I like to win, and basically protect them with a top 20. Other guys that I like down the board, I basically want to find plus numbers. So typically once you get to like high 40s, 50s, oftentimes those guys are going to be plus number on T30, plus numbers on T40. We want to have access to thinking that they're going to perform well and look for the best plus number that I can get. Now, know your book's rules, because dead heats, ties in full really, really matters. Domestically, MGM is the best. I know that they pay ties in full. They'll chop your stakes. They'll chop the odds. Each book's a little bit different. So I'll take a worse number on MGM, especially towards the top of the board if I'm firing at top 5s, top 10s, top 20s, because you typically see a larger group of guys clumping there. So it's very easy to say, it's one shot difference between T9 and T21. And if you don't have that like chop covered, that's an L. So I'll always take, a plus 115 instead of a plus 125 to ensure that I get paid in full. So that's kind of how I do it. More so the majors, I'll dabble in the 5s and 10s just to get access to more guys, and mix up just so I don't have, 8 outrights and leave myself no chance for profitability. I'll mix in some of those top 5s and 10s, but it's usually winners get bracketed with a T20. And then the guys that I like, I'll mix in T30, T40, depending on prices.
Yeah. And I guess I'm not going to spend any time on this because it's mind numbing to think about, but understand, the chop math, understand the dead heat math a little bit to understand what you're getting into. Yep. And I think it's very reductionist to say, I'm just looking for plus numbers in most cases. But in Ryan's case, what he's talking about here is like, don't get too squirrely with, oh, this looks too easy at minus 105. Like for this guy to top 20, this top golfer to top 20 here, you can win and lose money on these chops. Like you can for sure. It takes less and less the lower those odds get for you to actually lose money on a winning bet, which sounds funny, but if it's a 5-way tie for 20th, you guys minus 105, you're not going to win money. You're not going to lose all your money. It's not a losing bet where you lose your full stake, but you are not going to come back with more money than you started with on those. So be careful when you get too close to even money on some of these. If you're playing at a book that is going to chop those bets, I've seen that a few times where people just, they can't understand why, a first round leader live number is like, he's in the clubhouse at this number. He's like minus 115. Why wouldn't I bet this? And then, somebody shoots 4 under on the last 3 holes, chops it, and you actually lost money because it's a 2-way chop on that. So it's silly, stupid, awful horse racing math. Honestly, it's dumb, but definitely watch out for that. Know which books in the offshore markets. If you look at Bovada, you'll see like every one of their markets is worse. Like top 20 for somebody is going to be 3-1. At Bovada, it's going to be plus 225. It's because they don't chop. They will pay 40 guys could be tied for 20th place. They'll pay every single one of them out in full. That's why the numbers are going to be worse. I think that's the biggest indicator before you even go to house rules. Go look. Is this the worst number I can get on top 20? Usually you're going to be paid in full no matter what at that book. So keep an eye, know your rules. Super important. Don't bet stupid shit like John Rahm top 20 minus 300. That's only going to end up in heartache. Although even if he's 28th on Sunday coming in, I feel like that's catching. That's like that's his MO anyway. So I'll probably be dabbling a little more. I don't post them a lot. I know I talk about them a little here. Like you mentioned the Percy bet. That was nice, but I'll probably be posting a few that I play because honestly, I think my entire outright card I think I've been through it. I think it is Day, it is Hovland, it is Thomas, all at about 30, 34 to 1. So that might be it for me. And I mean, Matt Ryan pointed out I lost money on top 5 because there were 5 guys tied for 5th. And that's how you end up getting snookered on that, which it does suck. That's the tough part about this. So
yeah,
I haven't looked heavily, but some of the guys that I mentioned where it's like, I don't think this guy can win, but maybe his number, it's a direct correlation. The outright number and the top 20, top 40s, that sort of stuff. It should be semi-correlated. And I know it's not a perfect line, for everything going 5, 10, 15 or 5, 10, 20, 40, but it's close enough. And if you have a guy that say like, man, this is a good number, I really think I should bet this guy. I don't think he can win though. Like that's what sucks is like, cause you should always bet value. If you think Keegan Bradley's number is bad to win, you should bet it. But the common sense just says like, yeah, that sucks because the number's bad. It's still, they're not going to play this tournament 100 times over and let him win one when you're getting a decent number on this. So that's where I'm probably going to be looking at some of these top 20 bets on a few guys that I have hired. I guess I could talk about a couple of them for the most part.
Give you some numbers. I'll give you some numbers too. I will say that the only down the board bet that I made in terms of outrights was Keegan Bradley at 80.
I keep shitting on Keegan. I knew. I've seen like 8 people bet him, and I get it. But yeah, I mean, are you going to have a top 20 on him?
So Keegan, depending on the number, he might even be because he's so far down the board. I could probably get a plus number T30 or T40, and I'll pay for the extra spots. He is. So here's what we're talking about. He is plus 240 on FanDuel to T20. He is plus 170 on MGM. Right, so we're losing 70 points essentially, but we're protected with the chop on the the push there. So, I mean, I like Keegan here. He's another like Keegan tough courses, Keegan long irons. I like Keegan on places that I like Homa and I like Zalatoris. That's worked out pretty well. He's played well here. I like Keegan quite a bit. So, yeah, it's for me, it's the top of the board, and then Keegan's the only. I skipped the 40 to 70 range just because I took a shot at the top at Rory. And, that obviously is expensive and that changes the, kind of the calculus of the week. So who else is on the menu for finishing positions here for you?
I think for me, probably Fleetwood, Connors, Horschel, Woodland.
Yeah.
They're all going to be somewhere between 200, 400, like plus 200 to 400, depending again, if you decide to chop or not on top 20s. This might be the week that I actually go to Iowa and bet some top 40 markets because I'm guessing top 30s for some of those guys to still stay into plus money, but there might be a top 40. And like Woodland, I think there's probably a top 40. I have FanDuel on my computer. I don't know why I'm sitting here guessing at stuff. Like those markets are clearly up at this point, correct?
Yes, they are. Let's see. Woodland on FanDuel is the best number, plus 125 for T40. Yeah. And that's a great price. Yeah.
Fleetwood and Woodland plus 100, plus 125 to top 40. Yeah. Connors minus 110. Maybe that's a minus. Honestly, Connors is probably a top 20 bet for me. And then who's the other one I mentioned? Billy Horschel. I'm thinking that's probably another.
You said Keith Mitchell. Keith Mitchell's 125 on DraftKings. That's the best number for his T40.
Horschel plus 145 for a top 40. That's probably a look as well.
Yeah. it's kind of where, I like that list of guys that you rattled off there too. They're all guys for me that I like. I like the fit. I like the form. I just don't think that they can win. And Keegan falls in that bucket for sure. I like that too. The other guy too is a little bit longer that really popped for me, surprisingly. Let me see where he actually finished in what I ran this week, and I'll let you see if you can guess it. He's 14th for me for the week, and he definitely is like, you run down the list of names, you're like, that is different. But he is a guy that has been featured here often, the guy that we talk about fairly frequently.
Wyndham Clark?
No, it's a good one though. I like Windy C. Smalley.
Think Smalley. Yeah, Smalley. I mean, if you're looking at anything approach,
Yep.
Smalley's gonna pop high. He's a good approach. He's a good greens and regulation. He's played well and he has a good par 5 numbers. So yeah,
Yes,
that's a top 40 look.
2-1 on DraftKings is the best number on Smalley to T40.
Maybe I'll join you on that one. Aaron Wise, Matt says. That's now he's just rubbing it in.
Oh, I know. I kind of like him here, but like again, another one like last week. Like if you can't get it done in that field, his long irons have been good. He's around the green. I got it from mental health. I can't this week. He's definitely not getting any outright money. We'll wait for. He loves Memorial. He loves Quail Hollow. I'll burn money back there. I have to protect myself.
Yeah.
Keegan's my loser this week. We have budget for one loser. Keegan's my loser.
I think that's it. It's funny. Like I say, I don't know if this is a leak or like a messed up kind of heuristic cognitive bias, but for some reason I have less money I'm investing in outright. So it's like, well, I have to spend that money somewhere. I'm like a child. Like my kids do this when they get paid for like chores and stuff. Can we go to Five Below? You don't have to spend the money right now. You can keep the money for a later date. You don't have to go blow this on candy and bullshit right now. But I think it's mostly the fact that I do like a bunch of guys lower in the board that I just can't justify betting outright. So I will be betting some top 20s, top 40s. I'll post that in the Discord for anyone's in there once I get around to figuring out exactly where I'm going to bet it and how much I'm going to put on it. So
here's the thing. It's slightly depressing. I had a top 5 or top 10 on Scotty here last year. When you have that and they win, it sucks. But it doesn't.
Don't put that evil on us.
But I'm just saying, you still will win some money. So it's not great, but at the end of the day, like you'll still cash a winning ticket. So if you happen to have a guy that you identify down the board that you like, and you like Sammy Burns, and you have a T20 on him, you're still going to get paid for the T20. You don't get the victory laps. You don't get the love for it. But
and that is an actual, like that is just an actual heuristic. That's hindsight bias. Oh, yeah. It's just like anything else. Like, hey, you bet the Eagles to beat the Giants. Like, in the third quarter, you're mad at yourself that you didn't bet the whole your mortgage. You're mad you didn't bet every dime you had. It's the same with anything. Like, hindsight's a motherfucker, and you're gonna have to deal with that. But it does stink, though. And
it does.
That sort of stuff. This is maybe worse. It's not this. I tried to make it apples. That's not apples to apples. Like a football team beating the shit out of another football team that you bet the spread against, or I guess a case where I've done this with teasers, and anyone's familiar with teasers, I mostly do basic strategy. So it's a lot of like, hey, this team is a 2.5 point dog, and I tease it out to 8.5. And I did that. I think a couple years ago, I did that with a couple teams in week 1. Where I had them both, they just had to stay within 8 points to cover the teaser, and they both won outright by like 15. So obviously, like they were probably plus 125, plus 130 dogs. So instantly your mind's like, well, I should have just parlayed them outright. That pays like 4 or 5 to 1 rather than this minus 110. Well, yeah, if we knew the answer to all the games, like we wouldn't be doing a show. Me and Ryan would be sitting on a damn island, like at the end of Trading Places with the Mai Tai glasses. So it's tough, and don't let that stuff eat up at you.
Yeah, they still cash. It's golf betting is its own beast. Outright betting is definitely its own thing. It changes. Definitely different than the way I think we bet anything else. So, identify good players that you like here, and find, responsible ways to get some action on them. Because again, the worst thing, even worse to me, is being like, I really like that guy this week. I just didn't put him on anything. that sucks. That was Chris Kirk for me last week. I had a T40 on Chris Kirk last week. Same premise, right? Like, I liked him. I didn't fit the outright card because I'm a fucking donkey and pot committed to Aaron Wise, and he was in the same tier. I already crossed the list off, and again, I cashed my Chris Kirk ticket, but obviously there was more meat on the bone. But just got to keep going. There's another tournament next week, and can't overextend yourself and get yourself in a spot where you basically need one of the 7 expensive guys that you picked to win to break even. Like, that's really hard too. So you need to find these other ways, whether it's finishing positions, matchups that Andy does a terrific job at, to kind of balance, to keep you more than whole at the end of the season to cover all the outrights and more. So that's the game plan.
That is the game plan. So, all right. Real quick, I know a lot of you who watch the show are actually members. You're in the Discord, but it's been a while. It's been a few weeks, but we are doing a discount again this week. Be 30. What are we? 30 or 33%? Either way,
33%. Yeah,
33% off to celebrate Ron hitting the 33-1. I'll do this all damn year. I'll give a discount. So yearly memberships are 33% off. I think that's like $67 you save on a yearly sub. So that's a pretty decent sized discount. And guess what? We're coming up on a big stretch. You have the Players, you have the Masters in about a month and change at this point. We have a bunch of big events. It takes you through, the gist of the summer. So BetSports Golf, you can go sign up for that. You don't need a promo code. You don't need some fucking coupon. You don't need anything special. It's up on the site. You just go to, to the pricing plans, and it's right there for anybody to take advantage of this week. So with that, like I said, give us a thumbs up. If you listen to this podcast, rate, review would be great. I appreciate that. Leave some comments on this video if you have anything. If you think of something after the fact, hit us up on Twitter at AndyMSFW, at RY Noonan, and follow at BetSports Golf if you're not already, and follow at PGA Splits 101 Ron, and read his preview, which is up for free every week at betsportsgolf.com. I'm Andy. He's Ryan. I'm also the producer of the show, so I should give myself a little extra credit. And with that, we'll see you next week.